everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Corey Ray Sterringer, and today I'm coming to you with a good old paranormal story time, which is what I used to do only on my channel whenever I first started a few years ago. But today, this one, instead of focusing on dreams and things that I've had, there is one part that I'm going to talk about, a dream that happened fairly recently, but it's going to focus on experiences that I've had with psychics, mediums, whatever they want to call themselves, depending on their abilities. But yeah, so I have seen, since I was doing the channel last, I've been to 3 psychics. I'm going to focus mainly on the first one and the last one that I visited, because the one in the middle I just didn't click with for some reason. I'll get more into that as to why. But anyway, so the first one I went to was actually at a paint night sort of event that was taking place at a restaurant about an hour away from where I live. And we had seen that it was a psychic theme paint night. And my cousin, one of the ones I got the tattoo with, and I were very interested. So we wanted to go to it, and her former mother-in-law went with us as well. And so we get down there, and it's the paint night, just like if you've ever been to one. They give you the canvas, have the drawing on it, you're supposed to paint like she is. But the psychic was the real reason we obviously went, because if I really wanted to paint something, I could paint something myself. It was still fun, but so we went down. The psychic was this little old lady walking with a cane, and the woman running the paint night was dismissing us by table to go back and have our readings done with her. So, of course, our table ended up being the last one. Well, when it come time to do our table, the lady was like, I'm too tired, it's drained me too much to do all these readings, I can't do anymore. So of course we were, upset. It's basically the reason we drove an hour down there just for her, basically. So we started talking to the paint night lady. My cousin's former mother-in-law wasn't very happy, obviously. So I went over and started talking to the psychic, and I'm like, hey, we drove down here an hour mainly to see you. Any way you could possibly do our reading? And she's like, oh, I'm just too tired and exhausted. She's like, let me give you my phone number, and you can come to my house, and I can do the reading there. So as I'm getting her number, she suddenly asks me, she's like, so as she's giving me her number, sorry, I just had to stop because one of my dogs was outside the bedroom door barking at the other two. But anyway, so I was getting the woman's number, and she suddenly looks at me and she goes, who's the young man that's passed in your life? And I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I haven't had anybody young pass that I know of. And she's like, whoever this is, they liked riding motorcycles and things. So I got to thinking about my brother's friend who used to go riding on motorcycles and things with him, dirt bikes. And he had sadly passed when he was 16 in a drowning accident at a local lake. And I said, well, it's probably my brother's friend. And I told her how he had passed, but he drowned. He wasn't in a four-wheeler or dirt bike accident. And she's like, well, who's the one alive that rides motorcycles and things? And I said, it'd be my brother. And she's like, well, you tell him that he needs to slow down. His friend's here to warn him that he needs to slow down because he's going to be in a bad accident. He's not going to die, but he's going to be very much hurt. She said, so he needs to slow down, whether it's in his vehicle, on the motorcycle, or a four-wheeler, or whatever he's driving. So my brother has like a need for speed whenever he's on motorcycles and four-wheelers, and now he has a side-by-side. But anyway, so not long after the reading, my brother, was at work, and he was going on his lunch break, and he and his friend were in his truck, and they were going to pull out of the parking lot, and they heard this like clanging noise. So my brother stopped the truck and got out to see if there was something in his tire or anything. Well, at that time, this great big delivery truck come pulling into the parking lot and cut the turn too wide and took out a telephone pole and everything. So if my brother hadn't stopped, slowed down, and gotten out to see what that was, the truck would have likely hit him or knocked the telephone pole on top of his truck. So there was that first thing. So then she goes on to say, "Are you engaged or married?" And I'm like, "No, I just started dating someone." She's like, "Does she have auburn hair?" And I'm like, "Well, right now, yeah, because when Kelsey and I first got together, she had like red hair. But it was kind of like on the darker side of the red, not like natural looking red, like actual red. And it was kind of on the darker side, so I guess you can consider it auburn." And I'm like, "Yes, she does have auburn hair." And she's like, "Well, she's the one. She's the one you're going to marry." She's like, "You're just now starting your relationship, but she's the one that you're going to marry." And lo and behold, we had been together a month at that point, and at 6 months I proposed to her. Not because the psychic said so, obviously, but yeah. And we've been married. October will be 5 years, and this coming June will be 6 years that we've been together. So that was the second thing she was right about. So then, in the meantime, while I'm standing there with her and she's telling me about my brother and my wife, now wife, my cousin and her former mother-in-law were talking to the paint night lady, and the psychic and I walked over, and she kind of heard that my cousin's mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, was upset, and she's like, okay, don't worry, I'll go ahead and do it. So she sets me down, and she started doing something that I've never seen or heard of when it comes to like readings. Instead of using tarot cards, she used like playing cards that we use for poker. And so we sat down at the table, and she has the deck of cards, and she starts, as she's talking, like flipping the cards, and she'd look at them and then think, and then she'd say something just like tarot cards. So she starts flipping the cards, and she first asks me, "Is your grandfather passed?" And I said, "Yes, my grandfather and great-grandfather both passed in the same year, literally just months apart." And she's like, "Well, one of them they are with you all the time." And I said, "Well, it's probably my great-grandfather, because my grandfather I wasn't super close with. We really only saw him like 2-3 times a year, mainly at the holidays." She said, "Well, he's with you all the time. Whenever you feel someone is like pushing you to do something that's good for you, that sort of thing, it's him. He's there with you all the time." So then she goes on to say, "Who's the young, dark-haired male in your life?" And I'm like, I'm not sure who that would be. And she's like, "Well, he's around your age, has dark, almost black hair." And she's like, "I feel like he's in some sort of trouble with the law." And I'm trying to think. I said, "Well, maybe my cousin." And she's like, "Well, I don't know. All I know is I see him, and he's surrounded completely by drugs. Selling drugs, taking drugs, whatever. Just completely surrounded by them." And I said, "It's probably that cousin I'm talking about, because he had issues back then with that sort of thing." And lo and behold, not too long after it all, he was involved in a big bust where he was one of the sellers for a bigger dealer, and he ended up going to prison for like 1.5 years. But he's good now, just so you know. I mean, it completely changed his life. He got out, and now he has a family and everything. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, that was another thing she was right about. So, going on, she then asks me, which I had been wanting to ask her. Part of the reason I wanted to see the psychic was to ask her if she sensed that I had any kind of abilities when it came to like mediumship or anything like that, because I had been having all the dreams and everything, like about the house that haunts my dreams, the school, all that kind of thing. And she looks at me and she's like, there's something you want to ask me, but you're not saying. And I told her about what was going on. And she's like, well, you definitely have a gift. She's like, you have a connection with the spirit realm, and you can strengthen that if you learn how to basically hone your skills. So she told me, next time that you're feeling something, just kind of close your eyes, like drown out the rest of the world and focus on that. So fast forward a few more months, so that would have been July. In November, we were on a trip with my now in-laws to Gettysburg. It was their anniversary weekend, and they invited Kelsey and I to go with them. And we did a ghost hunt. So we went to this old abandoned, well, not really old, but abandoned building, but it sat on the grounds of where there was a great flood at some point. And obviously in Gettysburg, there was the big battle there from the Civil War. So there was the four of us, and then there was like a group of like 5 or 6 people, and they were all drunk and thought it was like a big joke, you know. So the guy that was leading it, he showed us how to use all the different ghost hunting equipment, and then he kind of set us free to do what we want. So us 4 he sent off, and then the other group he kind of hung out with for obvious reasons, I'm guessing. And so first we went down to the basement, and then we come up, and my wife and her stepdad just kind of weren't feeling it, so they were just hanging out in the entryway. My mother-in-law was off doing her own thing. The other group and the guy that was like leading it was down in the basement. He took them down after we had been down. So I went off to this room by myself and basically went in there, sat in the dark for 45 minutes with myself and a recorder, like the little voice recorder. So I'm sitting on the floor, have the hood of my hoodie or coat over my eyes, and I'm just sitting there closing my eyes and thinking about what the psychic had said about whenever I'm trying to connect or feel something, just drown out the world and focus on that. So I'm like talking to it, trying to see if I can get anything to happen. And then I start thinking to myself, do what she said. And I just start seeing in my mind this little boy in like Civil War era clothing, like running down this bank where I guess like the flood that he said happened would have been, and I could see like people laying around on the ground. So he's like running through, and all of a sudden the name Michael pops into my head. So I say, is your name Michael? And obviously I didn't hear anything. But a little bit later, my wife comes in to check on me, and I told her about what I had sensed and heard and everything. And then she's like, okay, just wanted to see, make sure you was good. So she goes back out with her stepdad. Well, then a little bit later, she comes back and tells me that the other group's back upstairs, and the tour guide said we have to go back and meet up with them because the tour was over, or the hunt was over. And she's like, didn't you say that you had like gotten a voice come across that said Michael? A little boy named Michael? And I'm like, it didn't come across like a voice box or anything. I just like could see a little boy in my mind, and just the name Michael popped into my head. And she said the group that was down in the basement was using, I don't know what the technical term is for it, honestly, the voice box, I guess it is, where like it sounds like static and it generates words that the spirits are apparently like manipulating to speak to you. And they got a little boy named Michael. Now, like I said, they were down in the basement. I was up on like the second floor of the building. There was no way that I could have heard them or they heard me talking. So, yeah. Who knows? So basically that was the end of my reading with that one, like I said, I still had her number. My cousin and I were going to go get another reading by her eventually, but I ended up, it was in my old phone, and my old phone got broke not long after, so I lost her number. But yeah, so she like really clicked, and that was like a great first experience for me with a psychic. So then the second one, like I said, well, technically the second one and the third one, um, both took place at Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Like I said in my last video, we've been there multiple times. I think I've been there like 8 or 9 times now. My cousin is so obsessed with it. She has a picture of the asylum hanging on her bedroom window, hanging on her bedroom wall, and her son is named after the town where the asylum is located. And she got the name because she liked the name of the town. So, anyway, so she and I and our other cousin that got the tattoo and a few other family members and a friend and my mother-in-law went to the asylum. It's a big group. Kelsey wasn't with us. And it was a fall festival they were having, and there was a tarot card reader there. And I don't know what it was with her. I just didn't really connect with her at all. I mean, there was a couple things she said, who's the little girl in your life that has blonde hair, which would be my stepdaughter. But really, that's the only thing I remember from her reading, to be honest. But that's not dismissing her abilities, because everyone else in the group, like, really connected with her. So yeah, so then that was about a year after the first reading we had with the woman at the paint night. So fast forward to actually just this past October 2023, we went back to the Fall Fest, my 2 cousins and I, my aunt, and my cousin's boyfriend and daughter. So we were there, and there was another tarot reader, not the one we saw the first time at the asylum, but a different one. So we went, and she kind of did like different things where she had you pick from a category, and I did career for mine. And she starts with those cards. It's like these little round cards, and she would like put them in like a pyramid sort of thing. And it was like 3 day, like one row represented 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. And she was going through and flipping up the cards and stuff. And I mean, there were some things she said that was kind of like, I don't know. It wasn't like the first experience. I don't think anything's going to top the first experience for me, to be honest. But she told me that like the things that I want to do in life, which are honestly my goals in life, are to be an author and illustrator. That's my end goal, career goal, is to be an author and illustrator. So she didn't say that specifically, but she said the things that I'm working toward are going to come eventually. They're not going to come as soon as I would like, but they are going to come to fruition at some point. And then she told me, there's not a whole lot that I remember. She said about something, let me think for a second. So she kind of got out of the pyramid thing, and then after the pyramid thing, she flipped like 3 actual tarot cards. I think the round ones were technically like an oracle deck, but she started flipping tarot cards, and the first one she flipped, she said, again, it was just like, your career goals are going to come to fruition at some point. You're going to be really successful when they do. It's just not going to happen as soon as you would like. And then she flipped another one, and she said, I don't know what this is about. She said, I don't think you're going to be in trouble, but I can see some kind of legal battle going on where you're going to court and different things. And right now, my wife and I have been doing some legal things concerning my stepdaughter and her real father. That's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, Then the last thing, she said something about taking more time for myself. She's like, whether you're literally just going to go for a walk by yourself in nature, or you're going to soak in the tub and all that sort of thing. Which honestly, leading up to that, I had started like taking long hot baths to kind of relax and just have a moment to myself. Um, so she was kind of like confirming that for me. But yeah, so that was the 3 psychic experiences that I've had, like going to them to have a reading done. But another experience that I've had fairly recently, like just within the last couple months. So one night I woke up, I was off work because like I said before, work night shift at our local hospital. I was off work and I woke up between, like, it was the night of the time change actually. So the beginning of November. I woke up and went downstairs to go to the bathroom, and I looked at the clock on the microwave and it said like 2:45. And I thought to myself, oh, I actually slept. I actually woke up before 3 a.m. because a lot of times I wake up at 3 a.m., which, as you know, that's kind of a ghostly thing there. But anyway, so I look at the time and I'm thinking, oh, I made it to before 3 o'clock. But then I got to thinking it's the time change, so technically if the time hadn't changed, it would be like 3:45. So I come upstairs, I lay back down, and I'm going to sleep, and I'm like in this kind of half awake, half asleep. It's like I'm starting to dream, but I'm not fully asleep yet, if that makes sense. Um, and I start seeing, like in my dream, just this woman's hands holding this like water basin and pouring water from it. And then I start seeing a man's hand with a dagger in it, and he's like making like this kind of motion with it as there's like fog behind it. And all the while of seeing these 2 visions, I keep hearing the words incarnate and vessel, which I thought was really odd. So I woke up and I kept thinking to myself that morning, why did those images seem so familiar for me? Specifically, the woman pouring the water out of the basin. Well, just her hands is all I could see. So I originally thought, I'm a Virgo, and I thought, well, maybe, is that the symbol of the Virgo? But no, Virgo is just like a maiden. Aquarius, I believe, is the one of like a water basin pouring out. But I'm thinking, well, that's just odd. I don't know anyone who, off the top of my head, is an Aquarius. So I got to thinking more, and then I realized that's a tarot card. And it's the Star tarot card. So I keep thinking about that, and I have a group chat with the 2 cousins I got the tattoos with, so I'm messaging them and letting them know and trying to get like their ideas. And I'm looking up the meaning of the Star card, which means about like good things to come or something like that. But I still can't figure out what the dagger or the incarnating vessel would mean. So fast forward like a month later, it was like, well, it wasn't even a full month, a few weeks later, because it was right around Thanksgiving. I'm on TikTok, and I don't know if anyone else gets this, but sometimes videos will pop up on my TikTok that are live of psychics doing tarot readings. So this video popped up, and this woman's doing a reading, and I'm kind of just like watching it, and she flips up the card, the Ace of Swords, and I look at it, and I'm like, that's the other image from my dream. The hand holding the sword, dagger, with smoke behind it. That's literally exactly what I saw. So I'm like, okay, so both visions in the dream were tarot cards. The Star and the Ace of Swords is what I literally saw. And again, kept hearing the words incarnate and vessel over and over again. So I ended up messaging a lady who is a self-proclaimed witch and tarot reader. She and my mom were good friends in high school, best friends in high school, but then they kind of like lost their connection as they grew older. But I still know who she is. I went to school with her daughter, and she's a friend of mine. But so I messaged her about the dream, sent her literal pictures of the cards to say this is exactly what I saw. And she messaged me back letting me know that, again, like the other psychic had said at the asylum, she's like, I feel like big things are coming. She's like, there are, whenever, let me just read the message to you. Here's a screenshot of the message she sent back to me that you can pause and read. When she's saying that's good at the beginning, she's referring to my answer about the flow of water and how heavy it was. So yeah, so following that conversation with her, and she said about the whole book thing, again, one of my passions in life to be is an author and illustrator. And leading up to this, I had been working any free time that I had secretly working on all these project ideas for books that I wanted to do, that I wanted to write. So she told me that. So I, not long after, began working on one of the books. I actually just finished the writing process the 15th, which was Monday. Yeah, the 15th, which was Monday. So now I'm in the editing process, but the book, I literally wrote. So it would have been around Thanksgiving that I messaged her about that. And then fast forward to when I finished it. So less than 2 months it took me to write the book. And it was just like, as I'm writing it, just things will pop into my head, which kind of kept making me think about the incarnate and the vessel, the way that she described it. So yeah, so that book's written. I'm in the editing process. I actually just printed it off last night, and I'm going through with my red pen, making any edits, and then I'm going to obviously go in, make the edits in the computer. I'm going to work on some artwork for that, and then I'm going to start sending it off to see if anyone would be interested. Specifically, I'm going to send it to an agent group first, because I'd rather go through an agent and try to get published with a more well-known publishing agency than doing the self-publishing route, because I know a few people who have published with self-publishing, and I mean, it's rewarding to have the book, but you can't really make a career doing self-publishing unless you're like retired and that's something you do. But yeah, so those are the experiences that I've had with psychics and mediums, and the things that have actually come to be that they told me or predicted. And yeah, we'll see where things go with the book. We'll see where things go if I start working more into the side with these dreams and things. I mean, like I said, I still have dreams periodically, not as much as I used to. I actually had a really interesting one just this past week, but I'm not going to get into that right now. That'll be for another video. But again, if you like this and you want to see some more content from me, like I said, things are really going to be changing up. It's not going to be just this storytelling kind of stuff. There's going to be arts related stuff. There's going to be spooky trips, all kind of stuff coming up. So if you want to see that, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get all the notifications of when I post. And until next time, thanks.